do have some names for you, some names to match those faces that the FBI gave us a little earlier. The first one, his name is Sunil Tripathi. He's been missing now for about 3 weeks. His family even asking his whereabouts, trying to get some information on where he is. The second man, Mike Mulugeta. No information on him, I'm sorry to say. Nothing that's come out just yet.
Welcome to Media Watch. I'm Jonathan Holmes, and that was 9 News' Denham Hitchcock on the 6 p.m. news the Friday before last, conveying with impressive certainty information about the Boston Marathon bombing suspects that turned out to be absolutely wrong. In Boston, it was 4 in the morning, and Hitchcock, like a host of other reporters, had been trying to follow a chaotic series of events, including the murder of a policeman, for some hours. As the Daily Telegraph's Miranda Devine put it,
newspapers such as the Boston Globe and our own Daily Telegraph made sense of the chaos with stories on their websites, confirming facts and correcting misinformation.
Well, there was certainly plenty of misinformation on social media. For example, at around 5:30 p.m. Sydney time, 3:30 a.m. in Boston, there was this tweet from Miranda Devine.
Reports: Black Hat Guy Suspect 1, Mike Mulugeta. White Hat Guy Suspect 2, Sunil Tripathi. Retweet Call Me KG, Boston Police Department scanner identified.
By Black Hat and White Hat, Devine was referring to these pictures of 2 suspects released 10 hours earlier by the FBI. But the names she tweeted were wrong, and she wasn't alone, not by a long way. On his Daily Telegraph blog, Tim Blair was reporting the names.
Police scanner identified them as MIT students Mike Mulugeta and Sunil Tripathi. Mulugeta, suspect 1 or Black Hat, is dead.
Though that post was taken down within hours. So were posts on the Sydney Morning Herald's and the Age's websites.
The Boston Police Department has identified the suspects by name. Suspect 1 is Mike Mulugeta and Suspect 2 is Sunil Tripathi.
More embarrassingly, or at least more visibly, 7 News' Angela Cox used the names on the 6 o'clock news.
Mark, we now have unconfirmed reports that the men have been identified, 2 young men, one of whom's been missing for the past month. He is Sunil Tripathi, a 22-year-old Indian-American student who's been missing from his home in Pennsylvania since March 16th. The other is Mike Mulugeta. Less is known about him.
At least, she said, unconfirmed reports. On 9, as we've seen, Denham Hitchcock conveyed no such uncertainty. And half an hour later, he was back, live on A Current Affair, with the news that one of the suspects was dead.
His name is Mike Mulugeta. We don't have much information on him. Now, the other man, Sunil Tripathi, he is the man who is still on the run at the moment. He is the man that police right throughout these suburbs are searching for. SWAT, FBI, local Boston police, everyone.
All very dramatic. The next morning, hours after the names of the Tsarnaev brothers had been officially released, readers of the Age's first edition found a picture of Sunil Tripathi on page 1.
Reported missing by his family, Sunil is reported to have been named on a police scanner as one of the suspects.
In fact, Sunil Tripathi had indeed been missing for a month, and last week, tragically, his body was found floating in the Providence River in Rhode Island. He had nothing whatever to do with the Boston Marathon bombings. As for Mike Mulugeta, he simply doesn't exist. It's easy to be wise after the event, but there are lessons to be learned from what the Atlantic magazine has called
the anatomy of a misinformation disaster.
The Atlantic's Alexis Madrigal tracks the start of the confusion to a series of tweets on Thursday evening Boston time, soon after the FBI had released photos of the suspects.
I'm more than a little freaked out right now about the photos of Suspect 2. Looks just like a kid from my area that went missing exactly a month and is yet to be found.
Social media sites were soon awash with pictures comparing suspect number 2 with the missing Brown University student Sunil Tripathi. Then, around 10:30 p.m. in Boston, a shootout at the MIT campus in Cambridge left a policeman dead. In the mayhem that followed at 2:14 a.m., 4:15 on Friday afternoon Eastern Australian time, a Boston policeman mentioned a name on the police radio network. This is the actual record.
Last name, Mulugeta. M-U-L-U-G-E-T-A. M as in Mike, Mulugeta.
The man's first name wasn't mentioned. The policeman was using the standard phonetic alphabet to distinguish M for Mike from N for November in the name Mulugeta. There was no suggestion that the name had anything to do with the gunfight in Cambridge, let alone the marathon bombings. But everything on the police network was being scanned and transcribed onto unofficial websites. Almost immediately, one person tweeted the name wrongly.
Just read the name Mike Mulugeta on the scanner.
Half an hour later, a man called Greg Hughes sent a crucial tweet, since deleted. This redacted version is all we've been able to find.
Boston Police Department scanner has identified the names. Suspect 1, Mike Mulugeta. Suspect 2, Sunil Tripathi.
7 minutes after that, Call Me KG sent out an almost identical tweet. That was the one Miranda Devine adapted. So did thousands of others. The magic letters BPD, Boston Police Department, made it sound official. The tide was unstoppable. Yet it was nonsense. The name Mulugeta, as we've shown, was mentioned on police radio without context. And the name Sunil Tripathi wasn't uttered at all on any police radio network. As Alexis Madrigal writes, he couldn't find a mention and...
Multiple groups of people have been crowdsourcing logs of the police scanner chatter, and none of them have found a reference to Tripathi either. It's just not there.
Someone had heard what they wanted to hear, and social media had gone crazy. At 4 a.m. in Boston, with the names all over the web, 7 and 9's 6 p.m. bulletins went to air in Eastern Australia. Using the names is perhaps understandable, though Sky News, which was broadcasting all afternoon, didn't do so, nor did the ABC, or, so far as we can tell, any American TV network. What's worse is that neither Angela Cox nor Denham Hitchcock ever corrected their errors on air. Indeed, next morning on Weekend Today, Cameron Williams actually said this.
Social media's been getting a lot of it wrong, but Denham Hitchcock is on the spot, and he will give us the facts this morning as they stand.
So he did, but Hitchcock didn't mention that the facts that he'd relayed the night before were wrong. By contrast, the social media site Reddit, which helped to fuel the misinformation, has publicly apologised for its role. And in Australia, Tens the Project, which also fleetingly mentioned Sunil Tripathi on Friday evening, was back last Monday with a thorough explanation, an apology, and an interview with Sunil Tripathi's sister, Sangeeta.
We were mostly just very sad and very scared. Clearly, Sunil's in a fragile state right now, wherever he is, and we were just really worried about him.
Alas, it now seems likely that, before his name was ever connected to the Boston bombings, Sunil Tripathi had taken his own life. And now to another person who friends and family have reported in recent weeks is in a fragile state. That same day, Friday, April the 19th, this was the front page story in the UK Sun.
World exclusive. Rolf Harris, sex abuse arrest.
But the only exclusive aspect of the Sun's story was its decision to publish Rolf Harris's name. We looked at this matter 3 weeks ago. At that time, his name had been all over Twitter for months. A man had been questioned by police in November and arrested in March. But with a couple of minor exceptions, no mainstream media outlet, newspaper, television, radio or online, had named him either in Australia or Britain. The reasons the Australian media gave for holding back the name were various.
The man is 82 years of age, but as far as revealing his name goes, we legally can't do that until police in London confirm his identity.
What Tom Steinford presumably meant was that without that confirmation, there was a risk that Harris might sue for defamation. The Sydney Morning Herald went a bit further.
The information the Herald has does not confirm to this media outlet's standards the man's identity.
The ABC claimed similar standards. But News Limited, which first identified the man as an Australian entertainer, clearly had no doubt about who he was. Sunday Telegraph columnist and deputy editor Claire Harvey explained why she approved of her paper's restraint.
To name him at this point, before he has been charged, is, I think, totally unfair. But people are named all the time as being questioned by police, you might argue. Sure, but hugely famous international celebrities.
That a columnist in a popular newspaper should claim that someone's fame was a reason to protect their reputation was novel, to say the least. For decades, gossip writers have claimed that celebrity makes you public property. But long may it last, I commented. Well, it lasted precisely 12 days. When The Sun decided to publish Rolf Harris's name, the floodgates opened, with the Daily Telegraph cresting the wave.
Rolf sex scandal.
Not much regard for reputation there. The TV news bulletin's legal concerns evaporated. After all, now they were just reporting what a UK paper was claiming.
He has not been charged, but the Sun newspaper says the 83-year-old is currently on bail to face further questioning in May.
And even if the information still couldn't be verified to the Sydney Morning Herald's or the ABC's high standards,
London police will not confirm the man's identity, and the ABC has not been able to independently verify the reports.
The fact that it met the Sun's standards was enough to justify running plenty of shots of Harris on the ABC News and a front-page story in the Herald.
Under a red banner that screamed world exclusive, British tabloid The Sun named Harris as having been arrested over sex abuse allegations on March 28th.
Mind you, the Herald delicately pointed out that The Sun is
the sister paper to the now defunct and discredited News of the World.
The fascinating point is this. The Sun's report did not include a skerrick of evidence that Rolf Harris is the man accused that hadn't been known for months. It quoted police media releases that everyone had received. It reported that the police have still not confirmed his identity, and it added,
Mark Williams-Thomas, the former Surrey police detective who helped expose Savile in a TV documentary, first named Harris on Twitter almost 5 months ago.
So he did. And Williams-Thomas, you would have thought, is at least as reputable a source as The Sun. After all, Operation U-Tree, whose detectives have arrested Rolf Harris, was set up in the wake of Williams-Thomas's documentary about Jimmy Savile. Few people outside the Met itself are closer to the U-Tree investigation. Yet we saw no stories back in November that said a well-connected former detective has claimed on Twitter that Rolf Harris was the man questioned by Operation U-Tree. But then, as Miranda Devine put it in connection with the Boston Marathon coverage,
Twitter showed itself to be useful as a research tool and broadcasting medium, but only when filtered through this medium of authoritative journalism.
There are good arguments in favour of naming Harris and good arguments against. But the extraordinary upshot is this. Mainstream media editors the world over haven't made the decision for themselves. They've delegated it to that pillar of authoritative journalism, The Sun. I should emphasise that Rolf Harris has been arrested but not charged. He's understood to deny all the allegations against him, which are not connected to Jimmy Savile, and he should be presumed entirely innocent unless charged and proven guilty. Responses from TENS the Project, Fairfax Media and others will be on our website later tonight. Until next week, good night.